Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the third installment of the Clubhouse Conversation series where I, Patrick Ellington, the host and producer of the series, and the senior baseball contributor at Unculture, a blog. You can find us on Twitter at Unculture blog. Um, this series focuses on Black people in professional baseball, whether it be players in minor league baseball, major league baseball, or writers, scouts, individuals in the front office, coaches, managers, etc. Just to paint a comprehensive picture of baseball being a black sport and our involvement in baseball. Now, when I talk about black people in baseball, I do not just mean black Americans, as black Americans are not the only individuals of African descent who participate in professional baseball, but individuals throughout the diaspora. Now, today I have with me Quin, outfielder in the Cincinnati Reds organization from Denver, Colorado.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Denver. I like the shirt by the way. I just noticed, but um,
Thank you.
I got to give a shout out to Bailey at Foolish Baseball, a very popular YouTube guy who does a lot of great videos on baseball. He knows this stuff. He connected me with Quinn, and it was really great. He just kind of did out of the blue. He reached out to some guys on my behalf, and Quinn got back to me. So, shout out Bailey at Foolish Baseball on Twitter. His YouTube is Foolish Baseball. If you're a fan of baseball, I will watch his videos. He knows his stuff, and he makes it really interesting how he presents everything. So, shout out to him. So Quinn, how you doing today?
Good, good. Today's an off day, so I've just been chilling.
Yeah. What's it like being back, getting that first taste of pro ball again?
It's good, man. It's I can't complain. It's May in the Midwest, so it's still a little bit cold, but
Mhm.
it's all good, man. I'll play in any conditions right now.
You're at Dayton, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's high A, double A. I can't remember which one it is.
Hi, A.
Okay, that's cool. I cover high A, the high A affiliate for the Indians this year, so maybe we'll see you. But
Yeah, I think
that
we'll be
will
out
be
there in a
cool.
few weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. They have us on like a sign up sheet for us because there's three of us that are covering Lake County. So I may
Hmm.
not be there for I may be there in the home stand, but I may not be there for the games where you're playing. But
Right.
if I am, I'm gonna double check and see afterwards. I'm gonna let you know for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But okay, so you're my age, 23 years old. You're the same age as me. Same graduating class in high school. Just first of all, let's start with who was Quinn Cotton right now at this very moment.
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, man. I'm kind of trying to switch gears right now. Um, the entire off season, basically March of 2020 up until a couple weeks ago, I wasn't playing full time. Kind of bounced around, trying to work different jobs here and there. I was doing some DoorDash during the off season, worked some retail. So for a while, it kind of felt like I wasn't even a professional baseball player. Um, obviously I'd still get my work in, I still lift, hit, do all of that, but the rest of the time it just felt like I was a unemployed or part-time college age guy who was just hanging out. But it's been good. I'm getting them back in the feel of everything. Haven't played real games in almost a year and a half, so I'm getting back into it for sure.
Cool, cool. And as you bring that up, it's interesting because minor leaguers didn't really get a lot of support during the pandemic last year from organizations, and they it seems like they really never have. Minor leaguers are kind of they. I feel like you guys exist at the expense of Major League Baseball, even top prospects, and it's wrong because like I tell my friends who are casual fans of the game, playing minor league baseball is a feat in itself, in my opinion, and the whole perspective of minor league baseball in itself is kind of just very skewed and incorrect in my opinion. I don't feel like there's enough respect or visibility there for the minor leagues, and um, not enough money either. And I'm just saying, throwing out money, everything's gonna fix it. But the the facilities are underfunded, in my opinion. I feel like you guys are underpaid for what you guys do, and the purpose of the minor leagues, which is to be developmental leagues and to churn out minor league talent, and that's what it is. And it's such a unique system too that and Major League Baseball doesn't take full advantage of it in the ways that it should in order to get baseball to be more visible and more popular than it is.
For
And
sure.
let's be real, amongst people our age, baseball isn't popular, and it's not because of the sport itself. It's because of the people who run the sport and how expensive it's become, and how inaccessible it's become, especially for people like me, for Black people from in major urban communities. Is expensive. Um, no access to equipment, parks, etc. And um, there needs to be a shift in norms around the game, and it starts with getting more engagement for the game. And um, yeah, so um, let's start with coming up. When did you fall in love with the game as a child?
Truthfully, I don't think I really fell in love with baseball until, my later years in high school. Coming up, I played baseball, basketball mainly. Played a little lacrosse, probably 4 or 5 years in there. Did a little bit of swimming when I was a kid. My mom swam in college, so that's kind of where that came from. But basketball was always my favorite. I don't know if it's because I'd turn on an NBA game and see a bunch of guys that look like me, as opposed to baseball where I wouldn't.
Yeah,
Um, but basketball was my first passion. I'd spend hours and hours, on the weekend in the gym, just playing pickup games or shooting by myself. It was just fun for me that way.
yeah,
Um, and then getting into high school, I was just a more talented baseball player. I'd say my size kind of limited me as far as basketball goes, but ended up quitting basketball my junior year of high school just to spend some extra time in the weight room in the winter and some time in the cage getting ready for the season,
yeah,
and kind of took off that year and started getting college offers that following summer. Um, and that's kind of when I realized, I'm talented. I can really make a career out of this.
yeah. I like the point you brought up with people that look like you and me in basketball. That's a big factor, and it's a big factor in my baseball fandom because growing up in Cleveland, I got to see CC Sabathia pitch every 5 days, and he was one of the best in the game when we were kids growing up in the 2000s. And looking back on it, it it meant so much. It means a lot more than I can even kind of elaborate on. And when the topic of representation in certain areas comes up, especially for Black people, I feel like it's emphasized, but it's not emphasized the right way. It's kind of just brought up as a buzzword, or to um, just for people just to act like they understand or know or aware of certain things. But um, representation is huge, and I feel like you're aware of that, and that's why you're here, and that's why the series exists. And um, who are some of your favorite Black players growing up?
Growing up, Dexter Fowler, that was my guy. Obviously being in Colorado, I played shortstop growing up, but when I was getting into high school, when Dexter was making his debut, I got moved to outfield, and so having somebody in my city who plays my same position, who embodies a lot of the things that I want to be. So having Dexter Fowler as a role model and somebody I could look up to was huge. Being a switch hitter, just being the coolest dude out there. Like that's what it was about for me. And
Yeah, that's
he
what's up.
definitely embodied that. And then obviously I don't switch hit anymore, but I still think that, my game now resembles how his game was back in Colorado back in the day. And then Andrew McCutcheon is another one. He won his MVP, I think, when I was a sophomore in high school. And so, that kind of pushed me. Like, we got a similar body type. He plays good defense, good offense, just all around solid player. So that's what I wanted to be.
I agree. Kutch was definitely one of the best we've seen so far. And he was so visible too, and it was not just him on the Pirates team. They had a lot of Black guys. They had Sterling Marte, Gregory Polanco, Josh Harrison. Um, it was really dope, and the Pirates have a great history of Black players also throughout their organization's history since the integration of the game. Um, when did you? when did you like really like acknowledge that you were good at baseball in high school? How did that work for you? Like when did you stop just having fun? You were like, okay, I can do something with this.
So that would be my sophomore year, sophomore season in high school. Freshman year, I made the sophomore team. So my high school had either 4 or 5 different baseball teams. Like we were real talented. We were really deep. So I made that sophomore team, and that kind of lit a fire under me because I wanted to be at least JV. Like varsity, I probably didn't have a shot of getting any time regardless, but I wanted to be at least JV. Didn't make that team, so I kind of tore it up freshman year, and then sophomore year I came in. Um, had a shot at making that varsity team, and then opening day I was starting. Had a tough couple games at the start, but I ended up leading off for the majority of that season, playing left field, playing pretty good defense. We made it all the way to the state final. We were a ground ball away from winning a state championship, and we had, I want to say, it was 8 or 9 guys who ended up going and playing Division I baseball on that team. 3 of those guys are still playing. David Peterson with the
Mhm.
Mets, Max George and Reagan Todd, who are both with the Rockies. I think they're both in AA. I actually ran into those two at the airport on my way out to Ohio, so it was good to catch up with them a little bit. But just being around that many talented guys, and being the youngest one there and holding my own and competing, like that showed me, I can compete with anybody on a national level.
Yeah, so your high school was like the baseball high school in Denver, pretty much for
Exactly.
major league talent.
Yeah.
Did that's pretty cool. That's dope. I didn't know that. So going to your junior year, you tore it up again, probably. Were you leading off on varsity?
Yeah, so I was playing center field. They actually almost had me play shortstop, which
Okay,
would have been real interesting. But yeah, after my sophomore year, it was more or less my team. We had a lot of talented guys, a lot of guys who ended up playing Division I, a few guys who ended up playing JUCO and Division II. A lot of talented guys, but I mean, it kind of gave me an opportunity to be a leader, going from that sophomore year when I was the low man on the totem pole basically to the next year basically
right.
being the guy. I guess it was a good chance to be a leader, good chance to have an impact on some of the younger guys in that program.
Yeah. So what was that? What was that like? Having a responsibility and in that then a learning and a learning experience. I cannot talk on my fault, bro. As a leader, I'm sure when it comes to being a leader, it's not just leading other people, but leading yourself correctly and leading by example, and also um, changing who you are as well to just that position. So what was that like?
Yeah, it definitely had an impact on me as far as how I handle myself off the field, in class and in the hallways at school. Teachers and other students recognize you because in some ways you're a face of one of the major sports at the school. And so I'm not saying that there's added pressure because of that, but at the same time, you have to understand the position that you're in, and you have to hold yourself to a higher standard for some of those younger guys and even the guys in your class.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, so going into senior year, were you looking to get drafted, or were you just trying to play?
Honestly, I was kind of caught in between. Like even as far as college recruiting, like I was a guy that a lot of the bigger schools would kind of keep an eye on, but wouldn't commit to, wouldn't make an offer. And then, some of the smaller schools, like some of the ones in Colorado even would say, maybe we don't have a chance to that guy, he's going to go to a bigger program. So that's kind of how the draft went too. Like I didn't have a lot of teams on me in high school. I had a few who were, fairly persistent. But at the same time, my parents and I definitely understood that unless I was going to be given life-changing money, which wasn't the case,
Right.
that I was going to go to college, get my degree, and try it again after that.
Yeah, so you were drafted by your hometown team in the 38th round of the 2016 MLB draft.
Yeah.
I know that was pretty cool. Just have your name up there with the Rockies. That's the team you're rooting for. That's every kid's dream to play for the hometown team. But you went to Grand Canyon University in Arizona.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what was that recruiting process like with them and your relationship with that college?
So GCU was one of the first schools that reached out to me. Being in Colorado, we play the majority of our travel tournaments in Arizona, just because that's one of the best places we can get play against good competition.
Right.
So GCU, they had scouts coming to a lot of our games. I believe they saw me play in Oklahoma after my, I think after my junior year was the first time that they reached out. Um, and at first, I kind of wasn't. They weren't high on my list. I was still thinking, oh, I'm going to go to USC. I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to go to Arizona State. Because that's every high school kid's mentality.
That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to aspire to.
Exactly. And I don't know if it's still a big thing, but when I was in high school, it was that commitment tweet. It's like, oh, I'm committing to go to Vanderbilt on a baseball
Yeah.
scholarship, and that's
Yeah,
what
like
everybody was really after.
yeah, people are
And
doing
so
more elaborate stuff now. Like they got videos and all this stuff. But
exactly.
I know
So
exactly what you
everybody
mean.
wants that kind of attention. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And at first, I was like, oh, GCU is a pretty small school at the time. Um, but the more recruiting went on, the more schools I would talk to, the more it kind of seemed like, GCU was going to be the best fit for me. They had their head coach reach out to me personally and say, hey, I want you to come take a visit at our school. And compared to some other schools that I had already visited, where the head coach had either never contacted me or never met with me while I was there, that just stood out to me even more. And so
Okay.
that made the decision real easy for me that, I'm going to go somewhere where I'm wanted, a place where I'm going to have a chance to get on the field as a freshman and, hopefully build up this program and turn it into something special.
Right. And I want to kind of go over the structure for Division 1 scholarships and Division 2 baseball scholarships too, because it plays a huge part in baseball and how kids approach the sport. With Division 1 baseball, Division 1 teams only get 11.5 for scholarships to distribute to like 25 roster spots. Division 2 baseball is like 9.5 for the same amount of roster spots. And it's a big deal because with Division 1 basketball and football, you get way more roster spots to distribute. You get way more scholarships to distribute, and just for putting that time and sweat equity in, they're better sports at the moment for Black kids to play because that investment is you're gonna get a better return on that investment just by the chance to get a scholarship. Now, I understand the competitive ramifications of scholarships distribution because Vanderbilt, UCLA, USC, Miami, they'll probably be able to stack the deck year after year just based on the amount of scholarships they contribute. But being able to offer more scholarships will be able to just bring more talent that's turning away from baseball at a crossroads, because this whole specialization thing people our age are going through with the sport and how the disappearance, not the disappearance of the multi-sport athlete, but kind of the scaling back as we see kids, specialize earlier and earlier in age, hiring trainers and doing all the tournaments and travel ball, whether it be basketball, baseball, etc., or the football camps and stuff. Um, Now you played travel ball as well in high school, correct?
I did.
Okay. What was that like for you?
Travel ball was interesting. Um, I played for the same youth team basically the time I was 11 up until I was about 16 and heading into high school. Out of that travel ball team, I think we had 6 or 7 guys go D1, but only two kids from that travel ball team ended up at my high school. So the talent kind of spread out a little bit, and I ended up playing with a bunch of those guys during summer as opposed to just my regular high school season. So a few of us got to stick together, and we added a ton of talent too. And most of those kids, most of our talent on that team were pitchers, and pitchers typically are committing earlier than position players. And so, we had guys going to North Carolina, going to TCU, going to Nebraska. Like all these kids are committed to Power Five, big name schools,
Right.
and obviously being on the team with that roster, you're going to get pro scouts, you're going to get other college scouts out to those games because
Yeah.
you want to see the talented dudes who are getting all these offers. And so that absolutely benefited me because, I remember I was in Florida and I saw a scout from North Carolina at one of our games. And that was one of my dream schools, North Carolina. And I remember like all this added pressure just because I saw this dude in the stands, and I said, I got to go do something special. I got to go, make an impact on this guy. And, being 15 or 16 and trying to do that just kind of took a little bit of fun out of the game for me. And like, we're traveling all over the country and there's just a ton of pressure, and you're looking in the stands and seeing what scouts are at your game. So, I
And
mean,
it kind of takes
it's
your focus off the game.
absolutely, it's stressful from a fairly early age.
That make that makes sense. That perspective makes sense. And in the game when you're failing 70% of the time at your best, you're you're doing too much. You're not focused. And most importantly, you're not having fun, and that's probably the biggest factor that affects your performance. And you probably kind of were you kind of frustrated or at a crossroads when you kind of saw that the big schools weren't really were being tentative with the offers and things like that.
Oh,
Was that like a wake?
absolutely.
Was that like a wake up call for you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I that junior summer was when most guys were committing, and I still had yet to get my first actual offer. So I felt like I was already behind a bunch of people who, truthfully, I thought I was a better player than. And so when you're going out there every day and you're looking at these guys who are committed to these different schools, it kind of just it's pressure and it's stress, and it definitely felt like my time was starting to run out. And then I did get my first offer, and it was from West Virginia, and I really thought hard about it. It's a Power 5 school, it's in a big conference, it's a recognizable university, but at the end of the day it just wasn't a good fit for me. And so I'm grateful that I had my parents to talk to about it and my friends to talk to about it, that I didn't end up, committing there just because it would look good, or just
Yeah,
because, other guys are committing and I want to be able to say I'm committed too.
yeah. So, how motivating was that? Also, I'm sure that had to give you an edge with how you approach your training
Oh,
and your work and stuff.
yeah, yeah, no, it was huge. I felt like as soon as I got that one, all the other offers were going to start rolling in. Like if I got a Big 12 school who just, offered me 40%, I feel like if I go call the coach at University of Washington and tell him that, that's going to get me an offer from them. And that's where I really want to go. Obviously that's not how it works out. Different schools have different money tied to certain guys, and it just doesn't always work out that way. But
Right.
obviously I'm grateful to go to GCU, and grateful that it happened how it did.
Okay. So let's fast forward past the draft. You get drafted by the Colorado 8th round. You decide to go to GCU. Step on campus at GCU day one. Go through that first year for me.
Basically, well, before that, actually, I had asked my coaches at GCU prior to graduating high school. I had asked if they could find a college summer league for me, which they did. So I was up in upstate New York, and I mean, I played well in that league. I had a real successful season. That's where I got most of my confidence from coming into my freshman year. Like I'd already played against college level competition, and definitely felt like I could hold my own and compete. So freshman fall, we played real well. We had a pretty stacked outfield at the time, but I felt like I'd be able to hold down the starting job in left field, or maybe DH every once in a while. But I'd see some playing time, and so I actually got myself into a little bit of trouble with school, and so I suspended our first 3 games, and that starting spot went to somebody else who had a real good season, or a really good series opening weekend. And so I was kind of playing catch up the whole year, and, didn't really hit a stride. I had a decent season, but, I was playing here and there, and, really not living up to my potential while I was in the lineup. So I kind of
Mhm.
lost some confidence after that.
Yeah, that happens. As someone who has gotten in trouble academically myself and not even playing a D1 sport, um, I know exactly how it is. It's a bit embarrassing, kind of.
Yeah, no,
Especially
absolutely. Like,
I don't really consider myself stupid at all. So, um, yeah, I know exactly how that feels to get kind of feel like you got caught with your pants down or something, or just not doing what you're supposed to do when you're in college, which is to study. So you you're kind of behind your freshman year. Sophomore year is when you really had your breakout season. You got some all conference honors and stuff like that, and you really
Right.
started to do it. So go into that.
Yeah, so after freshman year, I played up in Alaska, which is one of the better summer leagues.
I read
And
about that. I was
yeah,
well, I heard that was probably different. I bet being up there.
no, it was something else. We were with a host family. I was with two other GCU guys living with them. So I had some familiar faces around me. It was a tough league. I mean, I played well, had a great experience. I got to go salmon fishing, which is something I thought I'd never get to do. Um, but
That's
yeah,
crazy.
they played well that season. Won Player of the Year in Alaska. And so when I was coming back to GCU, it was a different feeling. It was like we had a couple guys graduate, get drafted. Felt like the outfield was wide open. I just had to lock down my spot.
Okay, so and you moved over to center field, right?
No, so I actually played right field,
Okay,
sophomore and junior year at college.
all right. My bad, my fault. I kind of
That was all
assumed.
good.
Um, so describe your game at this point. You seem like you were a high contact, high on base guy. You were hitting for power too. You were racking up doubles. You were like, I think you were top 20 in the nation in doubles that year for D1 players. But you seem to be able to put the bat on the ball. What was your game plan when you got to plate?
Yeah, basically, I want to get a pitch where I feel like I can handle, whether that's a fastball or a breaking ball. If I'm on time for it, if I feel like my swing's in a good position, I'm going to go after it. I felt like I had a lot of success in college because teams will either read a scouting report or honestly look at the numbers, and they'll say, all right, this guy's got a high average, hitting for a fair amount of power. Probably doesn't handle the breaking ball well. So I couldn't tell you how many times I get like a first pitch, just get me over hanging breaking ball, and I'd be able to, do something with that, like hit a double to lead off a game. And that just adds momentum for the team. That's
Right.
just going to get the ball rolling for everybody. So I'm just trying to be a spark plug, more or less.
Okay.
Get on base, be able to steal a base, get in scoring
Score
position for my
runs.
teammates. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's about scoring runs. So
All right. So you seem to be a top on lineup guy. Was stealing bases part of your game too?
yeah, so that was something I was particularly good at in high school. And then getting to college, there's a huge adjustment because pitching coaches don't want guys running on their pitchers. They're going to vary their looks, mix in slide steps. Catchers are better, more accurate, stronger arms. So one thing that did happen at GCU, I'd learned a lot more about the art of stealing bases and what to look for, when to run. And there's a huge adjustment there. Just in high school, you can get by just being fast and being aggressive, and you can just take bases on people. But in college, and especially in pro ball, it's different. You have to think
Yeah.
about it. You have to pick your spots a lot better, and that's something that I'm still learning right now.
Yeah. I
Like,
bet it's
yeah, it's a
it's
crazy
it's
adjustment.
it's different. I know it's different. And going to your junior year and going to the draft, you're eligible to get drafted. I don't know if you were 21 when the draft was happening, but you were a junior, so you were eligible.
Mhm.
Um, did you have any contact with scout and any organizations up to that time period, up to the draft?
Yeah, yeah. So that actually started the summer prior to the draft on Cape Cod. We would have, the Pirates would show up one day and they'll say, "Hey, we want these five guys to come take this test," or we want these three guys to meet with our scout one on one. And that was another one that was interesting because you'd show up and there'd be five names. We're only interested in these five guys, let's say, and I'd say more often than not, I was the guy that they wanted to meet with. Um, I got off to a hot start, and then middle of the season kind of cooled off a little bit, and my name stopped showing up on those reports, and so that takes a toll on you too. That's something that you pay attention to, whether you want to or not. But then once I got back to campus, a lot of the area scouts for the Four Corners area live in Phoenix, so I got to have in-person meetings with I think 26 of the 30 teams. So it'd just be little interview here and there, answer a couple questionnaires, just kind of get to know the scouts and let them get a feel for me and my personality. Like obviously, they can see me on the field, but that doesn't tell the whole story about how successful a player is going to be. So those
Right.
meetings were pretty important.
Right. Makeup is important as well. And
Right.
for you, what was it like playing Cape Cod? That's kind of the big summer Willbat League for guys. And what was that experience like?
Cape Cod was good. It was stressful, going into it, but I was coming off a Player of the Year and almost 400 batting average season, so I felt like I could hang out there, and I did a real good job first half of the season, and then after that, it kind of starts getting in your head a little bit. If you're playing that well on that stage, you start thinking about the draft coming up the next year, and you know just
You just
make
feeling
up
yourself.
stories in your head. Yeah,
Yeah.
where you
And
think you're going to get drafted, how you think everything's going to go.
mhm.
You get a
And
little bit preoccupied.
it's different too with baseball. It's such a confidence game because I feel like it's not like basketball where you can take 20 shots a game. You only can make do with the at bats you get and the balls that get put in play your way. And I feel like this just makes the game so great in itself when success does happen. Is just how common failure is. It makes it that much sweeter. And it makes it that much more enjoyable to watch because the game plays itself out. There's no clock. It's just pure chaos for those 9 innings. And until all 27 outs are recorded for both teams, it's not over. And um, what was some big moments you were a part of in college that you'll never forget? Going to war with your teammates every day.
Uh, one that comes to mind for sure was sophomore year opening weekend. We were playing TCU. I think they were preseason like number 12 or number 15, but they were high up there.
Mhm.
Um, and that's a program that at GCU we kind of wanted to emulate. Like they go about it the right way, play hard, put the ball in play, throw strikes on the mound. So we end up losing a real close one Friday night. We had a lead and we lost it in the ninth. Saturday, I think we got blown out. But then on Sunday, it's another close game, and we end up walking them off, and obviously lose the series, but to get a win like that against such a good program, that was huge. That kind of set us on the right track. We had a real talented group that year. Um, I don't think we lost a conference series that entire season, but real special group, and it started with that win against TCU. So that was definitely one of my favorites.
All right, cool. The draft it happens. You were day 3 pick, 8th round to the Cincinnati Reds. What was that like? Do your I want to say your agent representative or whatever. You're with your family. You're probably checking your phone all the time. You're probably checking up on your guys. In the various realms of baseball who are getting drafted and stuff. Congratulating them. Remembering what that was like. Dropping all the way to 38th round, and your hopes and dreams of playing professional baseball. Um, take me through the whole process. You talked about the scouts, talking with the scouts, sitting down with the scouts, and meeting them. But when the draft came, you're probably getting phone calls left and right, and text messages, and all sorts of things. Just walk me through it.
Yeah. So I was back in Colorado. We had just finished our season at GCU a couple weeks before, and I was a little bit nervous. I was real nervous going in. I feel like you would be anyway, but I kind of didn't have a solid idea of who was going to take me, or even like a general idea of what round I was going to go in. I had, some area scouts saying that they wanted me in the third or fourth round. I had other guys saying that they could probably get me in the 10th. Um, and you just don't know who to listen to. Like my agent saying one thing, I got scouts saying another thing, and like Baseball America or whatever publications are coming out with their own rankings. Like there's just so much noise around it, um, that it really does kind of take away a lot of
the enjoyment,
The
what you
yeah,
should be just enjoying with your family of being in that moment and potentially getting that call.
right.
And that seems to be a common theme. Your enjoyment with the game, your love for the game, the stress and the pressure. And it seems like you trying to cope and deal with that, and also retain that enjoyment and love and drive for the game. Describe that balancing act for me.
Shoot. I mean, on one hand, like I'm watching the draft go on, and um, so the Rockies were one team that I hadn't spoken to prior to the draft, which obviously they took me in high school. I'm very familiar with their front office and some of their staff, so I'm not particularly worried about it. But at the same time, I'm thinking, hopefully they stick with me. Hopefully I'm one of their guys still. And I think they took an outfielder, I want to say in the fourth round, which was around where I was hoping to go.
Mhm.
And so that kind of showed me like, man, like at the end of the day, it's a business.
Yeah,
Like it's a business and you can have your personal relationships or
and you
whatever. But
and
at the
even
end
want
of the
to
day,
stay home.
I I mean on some level I did, but at the same time, I'm grateful to be with an organization who, really values me,
Yeah,
really cares about me. But yeah, like you said, I was checking up with a bunch of my guys from GCU, a bunch of guys from summer ball. Seeing everybody's name called, it was cool. It was cool. And I had a lot of my friends from high school there. Um, but at the same time, like the second day of the draft is a long day. And like I said, I didn't know where I was gonna go, so I told all my friends, you got to get to my house at like 11 o'clock because that's when the third round is gonna start. We don't know where I'm gonna go, so if it's third round, we y'all better be there. And so we were sitting there for probably a good 2 or 3 hours before the eighth round rolled around, and I'm on the phone with my agent, I'm on the phone with scouts, and like the atmosphere there was just tense. Like my parents were stressed, I was stressed, my friends were like, oh god, like we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know. Like damn, I almost didn't get drafted on the second day and we had everybody over for no reason almost. But the Reds reached out, said they were going to take me in the eighth round. And we were watching like a live stream on the TV, and so my phone started blowing up before my name even got called. But it was good. It felt nice to have that weight off my shoulders and be able to kind of have a destination, like a clear picture in my head about where I wanted to actually end up being in
okay.
Cincinnati. Instead of just hoping there's one team and a million different destinations in my head, but to actually have a clear goal is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So when you got drafted, did you know you were gonna sign, or did you think about going back to college?
I so at that moment, no, but coming back to GCU or coming back to Phoenix, I guess, after playing my first season, I'd still hang around with the same guys who are still at GCU. Like those are still my boys and they're still in town. And so I'd spend plenty of time with them. And just seeing like the amount of fun that they would have at practice and games and all of that. And obviously we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID, but there were moments where I was thinking like, man, like part of me does wish I did go back to GCU, like every once in a while, just kind of a fleeting thought.
Yeah, just see maybe what would have happened. I could have maybe. Did you play in the College World Series, by the way?
Well, the thing is, no, and we actually never made the NCAA tournament.
Okay,
So my sophomore year was our
that's
first
what I
year
meant.
we were eligible. We rolled through conference, like I said, we are the number one seed going into our conference tournament, which is double elimination, and we lost our first two games, and we were just done. And that was heartbreaking for a ton of our seniors and the juniors who did get drafted. And then junior year, we were one game away from going to the NCAA tournament. And that was the week prior to the draft. So it's like my college career ends, draft happens, and now like in a lot of ways, my entire college career is behind me.
Right.
So then I think about like the team that GCU has this year. Like there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to go to the NCAA tournament. And that's something that I could have been a part of.
Right.
But at the same time, like it is good to have my career moving forward and to have my foot in the door as far as pro ball. Like that's
Definitely.
huge. But yeah, every once in a while I do think about how life would be different if I went back.
Okay, so let's go to the negotiating process with the Reds. What was that experience like? Trying to figure out what you wanted to take to sign and everything. Because you're in the eighth round, you're not going to get a 6-7 figure signing bonus unless they really like you. But they weren't going to have that much leverage, and you weren't going to have that much leverage just because it was back to college, and then you're a senior and you don't have any leverage, then and they could take you in like the 23rd round and give you $2,500, and that'd be
Right.
that. Um, so just we'll go through our process if you can go into detail. I don't want you to put you in a weird spot with the organization or anything like that. So
I mean, truthfully, I didn't really have much leverage at all. So I graduated early. I graduated in 3 years.
okay,
So I was kind of out of leverage to begin with.
right,
And, the Reds were more or less, it was almost like a take it or leave it type thing.
yeah,
I'm sure, I mean, they basically paid me slot value. So
okay,
it's not like I lost anything.
yeah. It could have been worse, definitely.
Oh,
And you're
absolutely.
playing pro ball, so I mean, why not? So your first year of professional baseball, you probably in extended spring training got the Goodyear complex. Um,
Yeah, we came down for draft camp.
oh,
Um,
wait, okay. I'm sorry, my fault. Let me rewind. Did you play short season of ball the year you got drafted in 2016?
yeah, so I was in Billings, which was our like rookie advanced team, which is just a different name for short season.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we came down to Arizona right after the draft, everybody who got signed. We were there for probably 4 or 5 days and just had a couple workouts. Just kind of just introducing us to pro ball, kind of getting us our first taste of, the complex, just about the way everything works there. We shipped us out to Montana and yeah, just played our season from there.
Okay. Cool. What was that like? I know it was different seeing just the jump in talent. And
Yeah, I would say there's absolutely, a big gap between college and pro ball, but it's not really in like the level of talent. It's how often you're seeing the talent more
right,
than anything.
right.
Like in college, you go up against a Friday starter in the SEC, talented pitching, period.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. He's probably
Right.
going to go in the draft
Right,
if he's good.
exactly. And then you got a couple of talented arms in the bullpen. But then when you get to Saturday, some of those middle relievers might not be as good. And then that Sunday starter is not going to be nearly as good as that Friday starter in most cases. But then in Pro Bowl, you're facing that Friday guy every day. And everybody coming out of the bullpen is a talented arm, you know. Like you can't take an at bat off, you can't take a day off. Like there's just none of that in Pro Bowl. Like college, you can get by with some of those midweek games and maybe not bring your A game and still go out there and get 2 or 3 hits. So, you can
Right.
still be successful without being as locked in or being as focused.
Okay. So yeah, so you may not be feeling good, but you still may go out there and go 2 for 5,
Right.
couple of walks or something.
Yep.
So 2019, you played short season, rookie advance, whatever. How'd you do, in your opinion?
In my opinion, not great. I mean, I ended up making the All Star team at the end of the year, which was huge for me because I got left off the All Star team mid-season. Like I was trying to make plans for the All Star break going up until I think it was like early July. So in June I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be at the All Star game. I'm not gonna fly back to Colorado. I'm not gonna fly to Arizona trying to see anybody. And then I didn't make that team, and I remember vividly. I remember exactly where I was when our coach told us the All Stars, and not making that list. That
You,
just pushed me forward even more.
you feel snubbed?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
I feel like at the time I'm sure I did. But I mean I kind of always feel that way. Like I kind of feel like um
That's just
sometimes you do get.
competitiveness.
Yeah, exactly. You're a
Okay.
competitor. You want to be on the All Star team. Everybody
Right.
does.
You want to win. I'm like that too. I'm very competitive, and sometimes I just gotta tuck it away and put it in my back pocket because somebody will do something very, very just mundane and regular, and I'll be like, I want to be better than them at that, and I
Right.
can't. act like a psychopath over something just so little like that. Because it just is being a competitive person. Sometimes you wind up ruining a lot of things for yourself that should be just regular moments of life that you just experience. And you just got to learn to tone that back as you become a functioning adult and finding that balance and also putting that competitiveness in the field you want to be great at. Like for me as a writer, writing is a very competitive field. And I was talking to somebody I know, and comparison is a thief of joy. And sometimes you just gotta just stay in your own world and put your head down and work. And I know exactly what you mean with the pressure and the pressure you put on yourself and expectations you put on yourself to be great and to be good and to move forward and be noticed and be notable. That burden kind of exists for me as well, just in different ways. So I really understand where you're coming from with that, and how people on the outside looking in really don't see that as well when it comes to baseball or anything in life. People can't really see it inside your head, and then at the same time, you can't really express it either because you gotta go out here and do your job next day. So,
Mhm.
um, the pandemic happens, and you're kind of on your own. You were kind of probably hungry. You're ready to spring training was happening. You're probably hungry and ready to get into your first season of full season ball. Well, what was that like to kind of have everything kind of taken away from you?
Honestly, it was strange, man. Like I showed up for we had like an instructional camp right before spring training was set to start. So I'd already been at the complex for about 2 weeks, going after it every day. Haven't we weren't playing like actual games, but we were taking live at bats. Like we were doing everything we were set to do during spring training. And so that first day, I think it was like March 13th. Everybody who wasn't there for camp showed up, and we were supposed to play our first center squad. And we had our jerseys hanging in our locker, which was the first time they'd shown up because obviously we haven't played games. We're not going to wear jerseys. So I was beyond excited. Like this was the first time I'd seen a Reds jersey with my name on it,
Right.
and that just like showed me like this is what it's going to look like in the big leagues. This is the goal.
It made it tangible.
Exactly. Like to actually see that and like feel it. It was unreal. And I went to breakfast right after, dropping all my stuff off at my locker. And we were sitting around talking, like we are going through Twitter and saying like, oh, this coronavirus thing, and talking about like the NBA, because the NBA got shut down a couple hours after this. And then they called a meeting with like everybody in our organization. They're like, we don't know what's going on. We're just going to shut the complex down for a couple days, see what happens, try to wait this out. And so we just kind of sat around, like me and my roommates I was living with, we were playing Warzone because that's right when Warzone came out, and that's
Yeah.
all we were doing the whole day, and it was cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we're stressed about our season. Like this is our first spring training, this is our first full season, like our first real taste of professional baseball, and then it just gets taken away from us like right
Right.
away.
Yeah. From a fan perspective, seeing it kind of roll out was very very bad because Major League Spring Training had already been happening, and then they had already been calling the minor league guys, and I was excited for minor league baseball in 2020. As much as I was excited for Major League Baseball, and then that happened, and it was just gone. And then um, it seemed like throughout the year, people in baseball were kind of fighting to get minor leaguers, the stipends and to get you guys support and everything. Um, and it was what was that like? Was there any like sense of unity among you guys? Do you and how and what was it like, kind of communicating with your organization through the whole thing as well?
I definitely think we're united with that. A couple months into that summer, a couple friends of mine knew somebody who was starting to organize live at bats for pitchers and hitters just to come in, get some work.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into a weekly thing. And that
Right.
group just started getting bigger and bigger. We kind of had to stagger it so we didn't have, too many people around. So we weren't, spreading the virus or anything. But being able to meet a bunch of different people who I had no experience playing with or against was incredible. Like a bunch of different guys from different organizations, different backgrounds. And so those are still guys I talk to now, and those are still guys who, I'm watching their success, because there's plenty of them who, I was, hitting with last summer, who are playing in the big leagues right now.
Okay, you want
And
to give people some shout outs or?
yeah, shoot, man, Zach Mckinstry with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
He was going off. I think he's hurt right now, but yeah, I mean, I remember meeting him, and now I'm watching him on Sports Center. Like it's crazy. It goes
yeah.
that quickly.
Okay.
Ben Wetzler, who's with the Cubs right now, I believe he was a free agent for the majority of that, or actually the whole summer, because he had been with the Dodgers, I believe, and then they released him at the start of COVID. And he's an older dude. I think he's 28, 29. And he's coming out and he's throwing batter after batter. Like he'll just keep going. Like he doesn't care how his arm's feeling. He just wants to keep getting his work in. And so now he got picked up by the Cubs. I believe he's in AAA, and he's doing his thing right now. Lewis Head, who is another free agent, I think he got released by the Mariners at the start of COVID. Got picked up by the Rays right before this year's spring training, and I think he just made his debut a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
So
I heard about him. Was Yeah, I heard about that. Um, so everything's kind of up in the air during 2020. You're checking in with your coaches and stuff like that, probably hitting coordinators and all sorts of people. Um, During the year, and 2021 rolls around. And the process kind of starts back up again of you getting your first taste of full season ball. Go through when they're like, okay, we're gonna have baseball this year, whether it be minor league and major league and spring training, and you kind of going through the process all over again. But this time, you get to wear that red uniform and the instructs and stuff like that. And I saw you retweet a video of you hitting a home run too. That might have been your first one, but of the year. I know that probably felt good, but just
yeah,
go through that whole timeline for me before minor league baseball started.
yeah, man, we were that same Live at Bat group, then a different group from the gym I was working at. We're all talking amongst ourselves, and we're saying, "Oh, what's your report date? What's your report date?" And up until like mid March, nobody had heard anything about when we were supposed to show up. Like we knew we were going to be going to spring training, we just didn't know exactly when we're showing up. And so I finally got that text from the Reds saying, this is going to be your report date. This is when you're coming in. And all of a sudden it's just like a switch flipped, and suddenly like it's real again, and we're going again. So man, I couldn't wait. Like my birthday was the day before I was supposed to report. And obviously like with COVID, I wasn't going to be going out or anything, but like I got a full night of sleep, straight to bed. Like I was just so excited to be able to
Like it
wake
was
up.
first day of school, had to clothes laid out and
Exactly.
everything.
I'm
Yeah,
just beyond excited for it. And then that first game that we played out here, it was a road game, but still like the energy was crazy. Limited people in the stands, but like everybody in the dugout, the managers, coaches, coordinators, everybody was just so hyped for it. It
yeah,
just made it all worth it.
yeah. As a fan of minor league baseball, it was so great to see it, and when I actually had my first experience in the press box last week. That was the first game I covered, professional baseball I covered, and when I was up there, it was very surreal to me, just to be in that spot because I've only been writing about baseball for like I've taken it seriously for about it's been like 368 days exactly. So it's been a year flat in 3 plus days, and to, just to get this far and looking back at my journey, it's great, to get to this point where I'm interviewing guys who play pro baseball. Part of a series where I want to cover black people in the game, and my vision is coming to life before my eyes, and I gotta kind of figure things out. But what's it been like you being on the road? You're playing, and you're probably playing every day too. I know the Reds really like you. Your name seems to ring out a little bit in prospect articles and stuff. Um, but what's it been like to actually to really do it, and you're doing it in high A. You're not really in low A. You skip straight to high A. So what's it like to be there?
And it's fun. It's I'm glad, like, they let me skip a level, and they, recognize that I'm up to the challenge of playing in high A right now. And it's been good, already. Like, we're 2 weeks in, but there's been ups and there's been downs. It came out pretty good, and then, all of a sudden, like, they started pitching me differently, and then I got to make adjustments on the fly, which, I haven't had to do in a while. Like, when we're doing live at bats, you face one guy one time, and he's going to throw what he wants to throw and whatever he wants to work on.
Right.
It's not a plan specifically to get Quin Cotton out. It's
Yeah,
just whatever he needs to do, you know?
it's like spring training. People, they look at spring training stats, but it's like it doesn't really matter. The guy's tripling up his changeup. He's just trying to get a feel for it. It's
Exactly.
it's different than when it's the you can't really mimic the competitive what the fuck am I trying to say, competitiveness of baseball when you're in a live game setting. Like you can't
Right.
with scrimmage in basketball.
Right. And then on top of that, like this year, we're playing 6 game series against the same team. And so what works for you on days 1 and 2 probably isn't going to work for you on day 5 and 6.
Definitely
One,
not.
yeah, like once the pitchers have a feel for you, because everybody in the bullpen is watching your first couple of bats.
Mhm.
So if there's a pitcher that I face on the 5th day, he's probably seen me get 20 at bats against his teammates and already knows what he wants to do before I've even seen his stuff.
Right, and their pitching coach is seeing you. Their starters going to talk to the starters that are going after them. They're probably going to have some piggybackers as well because with the one minor league level being taken away, it's kind of bottleneck some. So there's a lot of talent in all the levels right now.
Right. Yeah,
So
man. And on top of that, like the scouting reports that we get on our end as hitters are crazy. And so I'm sure the pitchers are getting the same thing. They're
yeah,
getting data. He hits this pitch well in this count. If there's runners on, we're not going to throw him that. Like they have a plan for you before you even show up at the stadium.
yeah,
And I
definitely.
think that just adds another layer of, competitiveness to it, because, if my report says I don't handle the fastball on the inside very well and you try to test me with that and I beat you, that feels even better.
Yeah. So how analytics heavy are the Reds, and what information that they give you guys and development and stuff like that, and how much do you pay attention to numbers in general and stuff, and
I would
video
say
and stuff
that
like that.
video for sure is one of my go-tos. They'll send us out, you know, angles, 3 different angles of every at bat we had the day before. So that's like one of the first things I'll do in the morning is I'll check that. I'll take a look at my at bats. And then that also has like built-in data as far as horizontal break of the pitch, velocity, exit velocity, launch angle, all of that. Um, I definitely think the Reds do a good job of providing the data for us if we want it. I know on our pitching side, it's a lot more data intensive. But as far as hitting, they're going to have those numbers for you. And if you want them, you're free to ask for them. But if not, you don't have to. And at the same time, like a lot of our hitting philosophy isn't necessarily data driven. We get all those reports, but at the end of the day, once you get in the box,
You're your only swing coach.
exactly.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like a lot of people in this era of baseball are putting too much blame on the hitters and not really realizing that pitching is just like taking a quantum leap forward. And hitting is so much more based on cognition and individual. Is pitching is an art and a science, but hitting is art and a science as well. And part of the art and science is largely undiscovered because it's just it's just different. I mean, hitting is kind of indescribable when I mean you could explain it. Guys that go up the middle, go out of the way, pull the ball, etc., whatever they like to do. But at the same time, there's just something about it that makes it just yeah indescribable. Um, like I'm sure you have great hitters you play with that be like, I'm trying to explain it to you, and you're like, I just can't do that, or something, or vice versa, or when you're trying to explain it, the guys that you played with in the past to do certain things, and it's just different. And same thing with pitching, but um, in the era that we've watched and you participate in, where pitching development has just gone up because of technology, and we haven't seen the same with with hitters. I feel like people are kind of just too prone to blame the strikeout and not looking at the fact that if pitchers are throwing harder, they have more technology to kind of mold what type of pitches they want to throw and shape and all that stuff. And hitting is reactionary at the end of the day. You're the one chasing the pitcher, and at the same, and you're the one failing most of the time, and the pitcher's the one succeeding most of the time. So, I really like the tidbit where you talked about the information and the pitchers have more, and there's inherent advantage with pitching in baseball just based on the structure of the sport and the nature of the sport. So, what has been you're in the box, you're back on the field full time, full season, 130 games, beginning to end. What are your personal goals for the season this year, if you have any that you can talk about on air?
Yeah, personal goals. That's like goal setting isn't something that I've been huge on as far as numbers.
Mhm. I
Like
mean, not
earlier,
even just numbers, but as far as what do you feel like what do you well, it could be numbers, it could be just how do you want to feel going out to season, or what do you want to do during the season, like just
I would say like most importantly, I want to have a solid OPS. Like I want my OPS to go up every
uh,
level I go up, which is, I mean,
easier
like I
said
said,
than done.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I feel like OPS is a really solid stat as far as, telling the
Balancing,
story of how productive a player is at the
yeah,
plate.
on
Um,
base and slugging. I mean, you can't really get more comprehensive than that on the
right,
surface level stat.
right. And so, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I feel like that's a good goal to have. If you're getting on base more often and you're slugging for a higher percentage, you're doing good. So short and simple, like that's all I got as far as that. But then as far as other goals, like I want to walk more than I strike out, which is definitely not the case right now. But
Oof. Yeah.
um,
I read a article today that a lot of guys are rusty, and it sure looks like it so far just based on the stats, and it makes sense. You guys are gone 18 months without playing, so
yeah, yeah. I mean that's another thing. Like I was saying earlier, like I tend to be hard on myself. Like I tend to have high expectations and demand the most out of myself, and so especially coming out this year after not playing for so long and not living up to those goals right away, that's tough mentally. But I'm trying to do a better job of not being so hard on myself and realizing that right now, like I've played 10 games and I'm probably going to play another 90 to 100 games. So
right.
whatever's going on right now could be completely flip flopped by the end of the season for better or worse. So
Yeah. There's always tomorrow in baseball. I usually gotta take it one at bat at the time, and um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're probably eager to succeed. You want to show everybody, including yourself, that you can do this, and because you want to reach the majors, and uh, I hope you do. And you're a cool dude. You seem to be smart. I really appreciate the interview and things you went in depth on about from your mental state with the game and how you kind of lost fun, or didn't have fun at times trying to worry about getting drafted or getting a scholarship. And I'm
mhm.
in the interview with this. Give a scouting report on Quin.
All right. I'd say at the plate right now, I do a good job of commanding the zone.
Mhm.
When I'm on my game, when I'm feeling good, I don't chase a lot of pitches, especially down in the zone. Um, More often than not, I'm on the fastball. I'm hitting the fastball well. Um, Breaking balls tend to have a little bit tougher of a time, but that's something I'm working on. That's I'm trying to turn that weakness into a strength, and so that way, when the report comes out on me, that the report ends up being wrong. And if breaking balls aren't working, they have to go back to fastballs, and that's cool because I love fastballs. Um, I'd say I have more success going the opposite way. That's kind of like the natural path of my swing. That's what's worked for me in the past. That's where a lot of pitchers tend to throw. A lot of guys, especially at this level, can't command the inner half as well as they would need to. But if I run into a guy who can do that, then I just have to adjust my plan and go from there. Um, on base, I feel like, if I'm on base, you can't go to sleep. Um, the catcher from the team that we just played uh told me when I was coming up to the box one time, he said, dude, when you're on base, I just can't go to sleep. Like I gotta pay attention to everything. And like that was some of the best feedback I've ever received. Like knowing that he's got to be on his A game because of my presence, like that's huge. That's
And I
huge
bet
for
his
me.
pitcher has in the back of his head too.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's another thing that comes back to stealing bases is if they know that I'm on first, pitcher's got to be quick to the plate, and
Yeah,
then that's going to limit what he's able to throw.
right.
Maybe he wants to throw a breaking ball in this count, but if he knows I'm on first base and I might be going, he's going to probably want to throw a fastball there, and
Or he
that's going
might
to help
try
out my teammate.
he might try and slide step and quick pitch you, and his command is off, and that gets your guy on base or gets him a pitch he can hit. Now, when the ball's in play, I know you probably take pride in ripping and running on the bases too. When your guy puts one in the gap, and you seem based on your stance on stealing bases, you like to go first, third, second to home, first to home when you can.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just I mean, it makes things go quicker. If I can score from first on a double, there's a run right there. We don't have to worry about getting another hit to get me in from third base.
Right.
Like if I'm on second and I can steal third, all we need is a sac fly or all we need is a ground ball up the middle, and there's a run right there. So
Yeah.
it takes pressure off of my teammates,
Yeah,
basically.
and contact plays as well. Bunting you over,
Right.
getting that ground, that fielder's choice, breaking double plays, etc. Now, I want to talk to you about the defensive aspect of being an outfielder and route running and reading the ball and reading swings and stuff. Because I know these guys are just even in the minor leagues hitting different and making contact different to where you gotta make better routes to the ball. You gotta make better reads off a swing because
Mhm.
something a half swing in college might have been a weak fly ball, but he might have hit it better just because in the major league, in the minor leagues, even these guys are better hitters, so they're gonna make better
Right.
contact and they're gonna be stronger, faster, etc.
Right. No, a lot of reading swings, like you said, that also goes into like my pre-pitch setup.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm watching an at bat and I see that this guy's late on a fastball, let's say he's a righty, I'm gonna move towards that right field gap. I'm gonna bring my left fielder with me and push my right fielder over a little bit so we can prepare for that.
Right, because he
And
might just go the other way with it.
exactly. And so
Right,
then my hope is that our pitcher, our catcher, our pitching coach all recognize that same thing and say, okay, we got him beat with the fastball. So if we throw a breaking ball right here and he hooks it into the left center gap, that's not going to really be covered.
right. So you got to get on your horse.
Right. Exactly. So we all have to be on the same page. And then that also, plays in with 6-game series. Like we had a guy we played this week who I think in our first 3 games, I think he had 3 doubles the other way. So he comes up yesterday during our day game. I'm playing center field, so I'm over in the right field gap because this guy has been going to right field the whole series.
Wording
And
out.
then sure enough, fly ball in left center gap and nobody gets to it. And that's just one of those ones where you gotta
You
say,
made the adjustment. You got to
yeah,
tip your
exactly.
cap.
Like we did a good job of preparing and we thought we were set up in the most, efficient way, but at the end of the day, it's baseball and that's gonna happen sometimes.
Right. And getting that data for a defense, and, guys like to hit and right center, left center, line drive hitters, etc. I'm pretty sure that's different too in at the professional level. Especially with defensive alignments now, we've seen infielders shift a lot, but we're seeing outfielders do shifts now too. And you're playing center, so you're the captain in the outfield, and you're coordinating, and you're up the middle, so you probably coordinating with your infielders also and backing up throws when there's a guy on first, and maybe still on the base if it's a leadoff guy. Um, and what's that like? Just being more involved in the defensive side of the game. At the professional level since you're playing up the middle more, and there's more information there, and there's more incentive to be good defensively.
Yeah. No, that's a huge jump that I honestly didn't really anticipate when I got drafted. Like I said, like I didn't play center field at all in college, like at GCU or at summer ball, like ever. And the Reds put me in center field from day one, and I'm grateful for that they believe in my defensive ability, And so now it's my job to basically make them look good and play a good quality center field. So, it's something I've definitely started taking a lot more pride in is being a solid center fielder and being able to command an outfield and basically have my left fielder and my right fielder in good spots where they can cover, where I may not be able to get to.
Right.
So it's kind of a team effort. And, I get with our pitching coaches and our pitchers and say, how are we going to attack this guy this day? Where are we going to throw him in this count? And so then, I can kind of prepare myself and, it's a 3-1 count. And typically in a 3-1 count, I'm going to take a couple steps back and a couple steps towards the pull side. But this guy's been crushing fastball. So, we're going to flip him a breaking ball in this count. So I may line up differently.
Okay.
So it all kind of plays a role. Or maybe
Right.
I say like, okay, this guy's slider's not working today. There's going to be a lot more fastballs. So I might line up a little bit opposite,
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's very cool. I didn't even consider that, but I'm pretty sure you got to read the scouting reports for your own guys to see, ground ball heavy, fly ball heavy guys,
Mhm.
and also noticing what your guys are doing during the game too. And
Right. Yeah. I mean, half of it is just watching the game. I mean, it's like you don't have a better view of the game than from center field. You can see how everybody's pitches are working. You
right,
can see everybody's bat path, the way they're swinging, where the holes in their swing is, where their hot zones are going to be. Like, all you have to do is look at it and then set yourself up to have the most success.
right, and to make that best reaction possible.
Right.
Now, controlling the run game in center field. How good do you think your arm is?
Shoot, man. Right now, not great.
Yeah, you
I'm
probably rusty.
I'm kind of like working through a little bit of a shoulder impingement.
Okay.
So I'm getting that arm strength back slowly but surely. But it's kind of showed me like you don't necessarily have to have a great arm to prevent guys from running.
Right. You
Like,
just gotta get it in quickly.
yeah, as long as you're getting to the ball fast, that's literally half the battle because that's all base coaches are looking at.
Mm,
It's less about you can't throw the ball if it's not in your hands.
yeah.
So if I get the ball in my hands as quickly as possible, they're just going to put the brakes on all their runners.
Yeah. And then you got to get the guy to your cutoff, man, quickly and
Right.
accurately too. You can't just fling it in there when you get it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm gonna end this. We kind of went on a tangent about fielding, and that was a really cool tangent. I appreciate you going over that faster game. Quin Cotton, center fielder in the Reds organization, 8th round pick in the 2019 draft. Currently at high A Dayton Dragons.
Mhm.
He just started, and it was good talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on.